Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening once again. Thank you for joining our webinar, Raising the Bar with Sugar Integrate. My name is Allie Fisher. I am the Marketing Operations Manager here at Sugar CRM. I will be your host and technical support person today. And with me, I have Rod Martinez, who is our Senior Product Marketing Manager, going over the Sugar Integrate, and also Matt Merrim, who will be doing a demo. He is our Director of ISV Alliances. Before we get started, I've got a couple of housekeeping rules for you. First of all, everybody is on mute, as you have probably noted. If you have any questions, just fill them into the questions box in your webinar control panel. If it's a technical question, I'll do my best to answer it as quickly as possible. That includes issues with sound. If it's an individual, I will try to respond to you individually. If it looks like everybody's having issues, watch your chat box. I know we're probably through the majority of the issues of streaming services having sound issues, but we'll see what happens. However, if you have a question about the presentation at any time, feel free to put it into the questions box, and we will be addressing them in the Q&A at the end of the session. And finally, everybody asks, we are recording the session, and that will be going out probably 2 to 3 business days, along with the presentation, any other assets we might happen to have for you. So with that, I will hand it over to Rod and Matt. Thanks, guys.
Great, thanks, Allie. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time. We're here today to talk about Sugar Integrate. It's an exciting new solution that advances our customer experience platform, and it's going to help our customers get more value out of Sugar. So Sugar Integrate, what is it? It's an integration platform as a service, also known as iPaaS, that's purpose-built for developers so they can deliver on integration needs faster and accelerate their business benefits. So why did we choose Sugar Integrate? How did we say this is what we needed to extend our portfolio of solutions? Next slide. So businesses, as we know, run through integrations. They can be small, simple integrations or large, complex integrations. New applications are continually being developed to enable businesses to understand their customers better. And larger applications like ERP systems are breaking out their solutions to offer services like inventory availability or order history without having to implement the entire solution. And many of these apps add value when they're integrated to a customer experience platform. Again, how are they going to serve their customers better? So business applications are growing exponentially every year. An average business user leverages 30 to 40 applications daily to get their work done. That means your average sales, support, marketing person touches that many apps each day. So if you think about your business, how many of these apps do your teams use every day? And how many have customer information that should be part of your CRM solution? Previously, only large organizations with big IT budgets could use these integrations as a competitive advantage to better understand their customers. Whereas if you look at smaller companies who can't afford to build and maintain all of these integrations, they're left to kind of pick and choose based on the priorities that they have. Next slide. Until now, right? So now we can offer our customers a way to compete with these deeper pocket companies and take control of these integrations by utilizing an integration platform that not only shortens the time to value, but also simplifies maintaining them by providing the ability to easily switch out applications, because normalized APIs will help you do that. And it also provides a single location to monitor and maintain these integrations. This is what forward-thinking digital organizations get excited about. They're free now to innovate and use different apps that meet their needs without worrying about the pain of these ever-evolving integrations that suck up resources, which is what's found in most of these traditional approaches before iPaaS solutions. Next slide. As you can see, this is a challenge for many organizations. The lack of integration of key customer data creates data islands that fosters competition among the different departments instead of cooperation. And much of this can be eliminated with an iPaaS platform. It will also help prevent duplicate records and ultimately speeds up the sales cycle. Next slide. So we talk about data islands or data silos. And without the ability to efficiently integrate key applications, companies are left with point systems and customer data silos that support limited business processes. An example I like to use is the elephant parable, where each blind person only gets a limited understanding of the elephant. One person thinks it's like a snake because they're touching the trunk. Another thinks it's like a large wall because they're touching the side. This is very similar to a company where different departments are islands of information and require users to access multiple systems to try to get a complete understanding of their customers. This, as you know, it's time consuming, and it will most likely give different answers depending on who you ask. An exceptional customer experience demands a solution that provides integrated systems that enable a true 360-degree view of the customer. And it also supports automated business processes that will span multiple lines of business. Some examples of that are again, ERP, if you're looking for financial health or getting order history. You may need to look at help desk for issues and incidents. Social and news feeds for top of mind issues. And then finally, e-commerce site for shopping carts, wish lists. All of this data has to be gathered and brought in to get that true view of the customer. Next slide. The other thing is that, the type of integration is vital, right? It also matters. And this isn't just a one-time download of information. A complete view of the customer needs to constantly be maintained because they're not a static entity. Many CRM solutions offer a 360-degree view of the customer. That's a single point in time when the information is updated, which can be daily, weekly, or even monthly. To provide a truly exceptional customer experience, you need to have time-aware, real-time integrations for relevant, proactive responses to changing customer conditions. And Sugar CRM has been focused on building out a modern customer experience platform. And we're the only solution that can provide all of these components necessary to help you leverage customer data and build customers for life. This is made possible through an integration platform that we're showing today that delivers on integrations faster and accelerates new business opportunities that previously weren't feasible due to integration challenges. But our solution also provides real automated updates of critical customer information with no-touch solutions like Hint and Connect, time-aware customer data broadcasts, which gives actionable insights and next best actions with our Discover solution. And we future-proof the solution through reusable integration logic as IT landscape evolves. So all of these components are truly necessary to give you that 360-degree view of the customer. So let's now look at what Sugar Integrate really is. I'll turn it over to Matt for that.
Thank you, Rod. So this is Matt Morum. I'm Director of ISV Alliances at Sugar, and I'm also the Product Manager for Sugar Integrate. Like many of you, I'm sure almost all of you, I'm working from home, and I've got twin 11-month-old boys here and a rowdy dog, and they're all really cute, but at times they can get a little noisy, so I apologize if at any point there's some background noise or if I get distracted. So I'm going to take you through some of the key capabilities of Sugar Integrate, explain some of the components, and also be able to give you kind of a quick demo so you can kind of see what it's like to use Sugar Integrate to build an integration, right? And sort of see it in action. So Sugar Integrate has a couple of different foundational building blocks, and the first one we'll start with, and in some ways the most important one, is this concept of adapters. And adapters, what they are sort of these pre-built connections to different end applications. So other iPaaS platforms call them connectors, and so you might have heard that type of terminology before. But we use the term adapter, and part of the reason why is because it helps normalize the interface with those different applications. It helps add features and things like that that fill in some of the gaps that like a native API might not provide. So that's adapters. Now adapters, there's a catalog of a number of different adapters. If what you want is not in the current catalog, it's really easy and quick to build some new adapters using a tool called Adapter Builder. So, you're not necessarily limited to what's in the catalog. You can also extend it to connect to new or additional applications, or even just modify how an existing adapter works using Adapter Builder. So adapters are kind of a core concept that you use to kind of connect to the different, allows Sugar Integrate to connect to the different end applications. And then we have another building block that is around data modeling, and how do you decide how you want to represent data that you are going to connect between these different applications, and how you do that data mapping or transformation. And that's done using this component called Common Resources, which provides a nice normalized view of data that helps eliminate point-to-point mapping challenges. And so on top of that, we have a concept of procedures, right? So that's kind of the third building block. And procedures is where you actually implement the business process, essentially the use case. When you talk about integrations, you often talk about, well, what's the use case you want to support? And that's usually embodied in a procedure, which allows you to define a reusable workflow that can be event-driven or time-based, that is used to kind of orchestrate how data gets moved, from one system to the other. And one of the things that we want to make sure our customers are able to do is leverage some of the best practices that we already know about building integrations with Sugar. As Sugar CRM, as the vendor, we've been doing integrations for a long time. So we want to allow our customers and our partners to accelerate time to value by providing pre-built templates for the kind of the most common integration use cases. And so that's another key capability of Sugar Integrate. And then finally, Sugar Integrate isn't just for integrations. It's also a tool that can be used to help you do data loading and data migration. So moving data, for example, from an old CRM system to Sugar Cell is a capability that we can offer through the Sugar Integrate data loader. So those are some of the key capabilities, and I'll dive into each one, give you a little more detail. So again, adapters, they're that pre-built connection to that third-party app. They normalize and enhance the native API. So for example, if an API, many APIs out there, many applications out there don't support a concept of a webhook, or in other words, an event, right? Hey, a lead was created in this system, or a message was generated in this system, having that information propagate out. Well, one of the features that adapters provides is it'll add eventing, it'll add webhook functionality on top of an API that doesn't include that natively. And so that's really powerful in terms of from a development perspective, that you can always count on event-driven data from all the applications you're connecting to, right? So that's one of the ways that Sugar Integrate adapters enhance a native API. In the catalog, there are hundreds of applications. Some of them are in what they call the public catalog, which is sort of the kind of our primary catalog. But then there's also a community catalog of where you can leverage other people or your peers' effort in building integrations to other applications. So there's sort of a very wide set of applications that you can support or be supported through Sugar Integrate, through the kind of pre-built adapters, and more are added every single quarter. So we're always adding more adapters all the time, based on, hey, what are the hot new applications that are coming out that our customers need. And saying again, if there's some gaps in that catalog that you're not seeing the application that you need, or maybe you have an internal application that that you need to connect to, then you can leverage Adapter Builder as a way to build a new adapter for that application, or for applications that are already in the catalog. And one of the features of Adapter Builder is that it can connect to any different type of end application. So one of the features that Adapters provides is that every application that is surfaced in a RESTful interface, or RESTful API. Not all applications provide REST APIs sort of natively. Some of them use SOAP APIs, if you're familiar with that technology, or some of them you might end up having to go directly to the database and query that in order to represent, in order to do an integration. Well, Adapter Builder is able to adapt to those kinds of, or is able to work with those different types of underlying APIs and surface those in a consistent way. So it allows you to kind of, again, adapt to the limitations or the complexities of the actual API endpoint and surface those as common features or normalized features that you can take advantage of when you're building integrations. Common resources. So, one of the big challenges when you're doing integration is to figure out, well, how do you want to map the data? How do you do that transformation? Because, what you end up seeing is you have different applications. Even if you look at, say, CRM applications, every CRM out there has, accounts, contacts, opportunities, leads, right? These modules or these objects that and sort of vocabulary that's very similar. But when you get down to the details, when you get down to, well, what do they call like the name of, like a person's name? How does that get represented? Is it a first name field and a last name field? Do they have a full name field? What are the data types that are used to represent that different information? Is it capitalized? Is it not capitalized? These types of little inconsistencies create a challenge when you're trying to figure out how to map data from one application to another, because every application is going to have a different view, a representation of that data. And so, what Common Resources does is it comes at this in sort of a novel way. You're able to build a canonical model that is convenient to your needs, right? So you can represent, hey, you can build a model of like how you want to represent like contacts or leads or whatever data object across multiple different applications, and create that consistent view that's convenient for your needs, and effectively eliminating the need to do sort of the point-to-point mapping of saying, hey, this is how the data from Sugar Cell needs to map to data in one, in each and every end application. You can use the Common Resource as a hub for representing that data. And then procedures. Again, this is sort of the most programmery interface in the of the sort of the Sugar Integrate building blocks. It's a low-code sort of visual configuration tool. It allows you to define sort of what's your integration process, what's the use case you want to support. You can use it to touch touch Sugar or in one other application or multiple different applications. It's really, really flexible. It's a really powerful development tool. And the way you define these procedures is in a template such that, you build this procedure once, and then you can deploy it multiple times for different use cases, for different users, for different, Sugar instances, right? And so this is a really, really, powerful tool for defining your integration logic. And again, so these pre-built templates, right? Basically what a pre-built template is kind of a set of adapters, a set of common resources, and a set of procedures that we've kind of put together for you that give you a really good head start on some common integration patterns. And I'll talk a bit more about some of those that we're focused on in a second. But the idea with these templates and the goal of these templates is, they get you 75, 80% of the way there, so that, you can easily customize it or tweak it for your particular use case, right? And or to meet your particular requirements. And one of the great things, right, about these templates, of course, is that we've built them. We know that they're built in a way that sort of meets our best practices and standards, right? At Sugar, so that hey, if you're starting from a template, you're starting from something that Sugar has backed as a good way for accomplishing a particular sort of integration. And so what are some examples of these templates that we're working on currently? Getting that you're able to get a head start on sort of that CRM migration process. If you want to be able to move off of your old CRM application to Sugar, then that sort of data loading, data migration process is something that we're going to have a tool that shows you how to do that in a really easy and automated way. So as part of that CRM migration, one of the things that we're taking that we're implementing, right, is preserving not just like, hey, we're going to move all your accounts, your contacts, your opportunities, your leads over, but also preserving all the relationships between those different records, making sure all the contacts are related properly back to the account, making sure all the opportunities are related properly to accounts and contacts, et cetera. And by the way, your Sugar Integrate's got a catalog of nearly 20 different CRM applications, and so this would be a great option to migrate off of any one of those different CRM applications, right? Another really common integration use case is finance or ERP integration. So being able to, from an account or opportunity, be able to view, your customer's financial history, be able to have a view of, what invoices, what sales order history, what payments, a customer has made. That's really valuable information for a sales rep to have at hand when they're engaging with the customer. And then, for a slightly more complicated process, like quote to cash, where, you need to make sure that quotes are created accurately based on, product inventory data that comes from an ERP system, making sure that, when a quote is accepted by a customer, that, the sales order is created automatically and accurately within the ERP, and allowing you to really create like that quote to cash, or, or even if you're, using Sugar to start to track your leads, right, following that whole lead all the way to cash life cycle of your customer. So those are the kind of the two integration patterns we're focused on right now. There'll be many, many more in the coming months. So spend a lot of time talking about how Sugar Integrate's supposed to save you a bunch of time in building your integrations. Some of you might be developers or have, sort of a technical background, so you might understand kind of the value of an iPaaS, or you've used similar tools before, and so it might come kind of natural to you. Yeah, I can see how this will save me time. Some of you might still be wondering, well, how much time is saved? You have an adapter. That's great, but I still have to build the integration. What does that actually mean, right? And so I will give you sort of a demonstration based on kind of a real use case, a real situation that happened with me recently, where I was able to build an integration with between Sugar and a tool called SalesLoft, in kind of an evening, when I think that in order to build that whole process, it would have taken me several days. And so I want to kind of walk you through that here right now. So one of the things, so the way this all got started was that, one of our founder, Clint Oram, he, I have a sort of a weekly meeting with Clint. Some of you might know Clint or have met him before, or heard his voice at least, because he's a frequent presenter on our webinars. He had noticed that we had SalesLoft in kind of the Sugar Integrate catalog, and he was asking me about, hey, could we do an internal integration between SugarCell and SalesLoft? Because in reality, we have actually a few of our sales reps that use SalesLoft as a sales engagement tool, right? And so for those of you that aren't familiar with SalesLoft, the idea is that it's really like a prospecting tool. Basically, you can have leads in this tool, and what it helps you do is kind of develop what they call a cadence, but really that's just sort of what's my engagement process that I'm going to use to kind of chase a lead. Hey, for example, on the first day, I'm going to call them up and leave a voicemail. On the second day, I'm going to send them an email. On the third day, I'm going to call them again, right? So it's setting that cadence, setting that pattern of how you're going to engage with that prospect. So this is a really useful tool, but at least today, there isn't sort of an out-of-the-box integration between SalesLoft and Sugar Sell. So what's happening with some of our sales reps is that they're ending up having to, essentially copy and paste a lead from Sugar Sell and into SalesLoft. And what was really needed was a way to just automate, like, hey, push a button and have a lead, like, Elon Musk here, appear in SalesLoft, so that you can actually, a sales rep can just run their cadence in pursuit of that lead. And so, I put the kids to bed and pour myself a glass of wine, and spent a couple hours in the evening kind of looking into what it would take to build this integration. So the first step when you want to build an integration, if you haven't before, you want to go research the API. You want to go understand, well, what's the interface that I need to use. So in the Sugar Integrate world, the first step there is, well, let's go look at the adapter. So one of the first steps was to go ahead and authenticate my with my Sugar Sell instance, because that's going to be where my leads are going to be coming from. And so you can see here in this adapter catalog, I just typed in Sugar, and you can see all the Sugar products that are supported by Sugar Integrate today. But then, let's go find SalesLoft in the catalog. And, I could have scrolled through here, and I'll scroll a little bit just so you can get a sense of, all the different applications here in the catalog. There's a ton of them, so it's a lot easier just to type in the name, right? And you can see SalesLoft here. And one of the things that, again, one of the first things you want to do when you're going to build an integration is like, hey, can I learn this API? Can I figure out if it's actually going to support the use case that I want, which is really, I want to be able to take a lead out of Sugar and be able to push it as an object into SalesLoft. And so here I'm able to browse all the different resources and all the different operations that are supported. And I can see, well, they have this concept of contacts, which is sort of the SalesLoft concept of a lead. And I can browse in here. I can try out the API and execute it. And I can see, the lead data that comes back. And basically, this part becomes really, really easy because when we say, the API has been normalized, usually when I have to go research or learn a new API, I got to learn how authentication works or how this authorization piece works. Well, with adapters, they all work the same. Authentication is handled the same. Pagination, when you want to work on a large data set, is handled the same. The querying, searching is all handled the same. So really, I'm just focused on whether or not the resources that I need are available, and I get like nice, obviously a nice interface where I can actually even just play with the UI, play with the API right within this tool, and I can very, very quickly, instead of spending like a whole day or multiple days for a complex API in researching just to make sure that, hey, I'm comfortable with using this API to build the integration, in a matter of minutes, right? In an evening, I was confident, like, yep, I've authenticated to SalesLoft, and I'm able to use this API to do what I want, because I can search for contacts and I can create new contacts, and it even gives me the model. What are the requirements? What data do I need to provide SalesLoft in order to create that contact? So really, really quickly, I was able to determine, yep, I can do this. I can do this. So that was sort of the first step, is like, okay, I know what endpoints and what resources I want to work with. then I wanted to define, well, what's the data model that's convenient for me? Because, when you went and looked at sort of the sugar sort of representation of a lead and how sales loft represents it, there's a ton of stuff in there. I want to simplify it. I want to be able to focus on a model that's convenient for me. And so I was able to define a prospect resource. And so, in order to drive this cadence and in order to drive the sales engagement process, all I really need to know is like the email address. I just need to know the phone number and the person's name. So that's all the information that's really required. And so I'm able to define my own model as a developer that I want to use that's convenient for me. And then I could map it to SalesLoft. And this mapping tool is really, really cool, and it's really convenient, right? For example, the different field options appear automatically here on the right-hand side. So these are sort of the native fields from SalesLoft that I'm mapping to my common resource. And then when I want to try it out, I can, they've got a nice convenient UI right here where I can go and try out my mapping and try out what does this common resource look like, so I can see that I've built it correctly. And so this is an exercise that's, if you were building from scratch, could take you, doing point-to-point integrations, it probably wouldn't take you too long. But the fact is, I'm able to go in and do the same data model mapping exercise with different sugar instances. I was able to add intercom in here. So I'm able to represent prospects consistently across all these different applications and really allow me to create something that's really interoperable instead of just like a single point-to-point integration for one particular use case, And so finally, after I've created this mapping, I was able to come in here and create sort of the process. So what's the procedure that I want to follow in terms of implementing this integration? And basically, this part probably took like an hour or so to build. It's got, and it's probably the most sort of developer-centric piece in the application. It does require a little bit of JavaScript knowledge and skills to use procedures, but I think it's pretty straightforward. If I kind of walk you through a couple of pieces here, right? What I'm doing is I'm retrieving prospects from a source system. So I'm doing the get, which is sort of a retrieve operation of my new prospects resource from a source system. And then I'm pushing each of those new prospects into a destination system. And I'm reusing that data model, that prospects common resource. And that's pretty much it. And so, building this didn't take too long. There's nice sort of debugging tools built into the application here that I can use to make sure I was building things correctly. But then basically part of the reason why, as I mentioned before, you're defining a procedure as a template. There's sort of these variables that get filled in when you create an actual procedure instance. And so what you can see here is that I built this thing once, and now I have multiple different iterations. I have multiple different instances of this integration running. So there is sort of the original use case that Clint wanted, right? He wanted us to be able to publish leads from Sugar Cell into SalesLoft, and I was able to set that up very easily. But let's say, I'm working with a different customer, or there's the use case changes, and they're saying, well, actually, we want the leads to start in SalesLoft and then land in Sugar. Well, that's fine. I can, reverse the process here really easily. Or if I want to support the same use case, essentially, right, this prospect publish use case for a totally different application like Intercom, right? I could support that here really, really easily. So in other words, in a couple hours in an evening, I was able to build an integration that touches on multiple different applications. Whereas if I was trying to build this from scratch, I would have to go research a bunch of different APIs, which itself could probably take multiple days to go learn SalesLoft, learn Intercom, learn whatever, right? It would also I'd have to figure out how I wanted to handle all the data mapping. I'd have to figure out how to run these, build these procedures. And then, even then, one of the nice features of using an iPaaS is you get a lot of this monitoring capability, right? So I'm able to come in here and actually monitor the the health of my integration, once it's been deployed and once it's live. So this is super powerful, a super powerful tool, and it's a good way to be able to manage, especially when you have multiple integrations between your sugar applications and other systems. And so that's kind of the quick tour of Sugar Integrate. And yeah, I can show a few more examples, but I will go back to our slides. So again, how much time was saved? I feel like, I was able to build a couple integrations in an evening that would have taken multiple days if I was trying to build this from scratch, from a developer perspective. And frankly, I wouldn't be able to have all that monitoring capability and be able to take advantage of all these different features that Integrate provides if I was trying to build from scratch. It just you wouldn't do it, right? You'd have to use a tool like this to be able to take advantage of those. So let's wrap up. So just to be clear, these are the Sugar solutions that that Sugar Integrate supports. We support Sugar Professional, Sugar Enterprise. If you're deployed on-prem, there's a piece of technology that we have with Sugar Integrate called Ground to Cloud that allows us to securely connect, allows you to deploy an agent behind your firewall that creates a secure tunnel back to Sugar Integrate, which is running in our cloud. So we have a really sort of secure connectivity story for those of you that are deploying Sugar on-prem behind a firewall. But if you're using our cloud, Sugar Cell, Sugar Serve, those are also supported today. We also have plans to support Sugar Market, in the future. That's definitely on kind of the nearer term roadmap. We intend to support Sugar Market, so that's coming. So what are some of the benefits for our customers? First off, Sugar Integrate allows you to create reusable, interchangeable integrations to your applications that have customer information, and you're able to do it in a shorter time frame, lower cost, and just lower, a lot less headaches than you'd otherwise if you ended up having to build these things from scratch or having to go purchase a bunch of different point integration solutions from a bunch of different vendors that have to be supported by a bunch of different vendors. And to that point, right, you now are able to trust in Sugar to be able to provide you that true customer 360 view, right? We're helping provide that integration technology now that we haven't before, so that you've got the proverbial one throat to choke, right? You've got you're working with one vendor that you can trust, that you already trust with your sort of customer experience business. You can trust us to support you in the integrations as well. And then again, this Sugar Integrate, one of the nice things is that it supports real-time integrations, right? We talk about Sugar providing a time-aware customer experience platform. You really need real-time integrations. Data needs to move in real time to feed that time machine, right? There's other integration approaches that tend to, like ETL tools that tend to rely on batch processes that might run like, once a night or once a month or once a week or something like that. That doesn't feed the time machine. That doesn't give you sort of real-time insights that I think is going to help you differentiate in your markets. Is there anything you want to add, Rod?
Yeah, if you go to the next slide. So thanks, Matt. If you need more information, you can go out to our website. There's a Sugar Integrate page out there. On that, you'll find a data sheet if you want to take a look at that. Also, a list of adapters. So the 200 plus adapters that Matt mentioned, those are also available. So you can go out and take a look and see, what's already been built out there. And I'll turn it over to Allie to see if there's any questions.
Yeah, actually, we have quite a few questions here. Again, if anyone has any further questions, feel free to continue adding them into the questions box. If there are some that we don't have the answers for, don't worry, we have your email address, so if we have to take it offline and contact you directly, but we'll do what we can to answer them right now. So the first question I think is burning on a lot of people's minds is how can we access Sugar Integrate?
Matt, do you want
Sure.
to take that?
Yeah. I think first step, contact your I guess your account rep or your sales rep of Sugar, and we can get you into an evaluation of Sugar Integrate. I think that's definitely possible. So yeah, I'd say just work with your sales rep, and we can get you into an eval in our sort of test environment, so you can try it out, kick the tires. Yep.
Next question. I'm gonna combine these two questions together. The first one is it similar to Zapier? And the next one was, how is Integrate similar or different from an integration application such as Delboomi? So, is it similar to the other applications? And if so, what are the differences?
Big spectrum there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so uh, I'd say Sugar Integrates is somewhere in the middle between Zapier and Delboomi, right? So Zapier, um, I'd say Zapier is great for simple point-to-point integrations. It supports a bunch of ton of applications. I see it as Zapier as kind of more of a lightweight tool for relatively simple point-to-point integrations. I think where Sugar starts to really shine is when you have when your needs when you kind of outgrow a Zapier, or you outgrow um, one-off kind of custom integrations or one-off add-ons, and you're really trying to embark on a customer experience integration strategy where you want to make sure all your customer information is collected in one place. Then I think, yeah, you'd end up having to outgrow Zapier at that point. I think the difference between Sugar Integrate and Dell Boomi is that, Boomi, or say even MuleSoft, they're really looking to solve sort of general integration problems for really big enterprises, right? They're if an IT organization is trying to connect, for example, like a bunch of legacy systems running, I don't know, AS400 or something, or trying to modernize their infrastructure, then those are tools that are good for that. Sugar Integrate is really focused specifically on your Sugar integrations, and how to build sort of that single view of a customer within Sugar, within the Sugar CX platform. So I think that's kind of our focus area, and so there's definitely ways that Sugar Integrate could coexist with, in an organization that is already using Boomi. But I think, we're really focused on sort of the CX integration piece.
Cool. This one might be a little specific, so I'm gonna ask it, and we'll have to see if you can answer. A person had said, we tried to integrate our QBK's enterprise desktop version, not cloud, with Sugar CRM, and they were on the cloud based. They tried doing that before about a year ago, but it was too cumbersome. Has this process gotten easier? We had a lot of duplicate data in QBK's and Sugar, and deciding which data set prevails was problematic.
Yeah, so I think QBK, I think you're talking about QuickBook Enterprise. So that's an application that's supported with Sugar Integrate. So we should definitely be able to make that process easier. Um, I think that's another product that's actually supported with Ground to Cloud. Um, and one of that integration template that I talked about with like around finance history and sort of quote to cash process, I think that'll give you a bit of a head start when you look at doing that integration, to kind of show you some best practices, because to avoid some of those concerns that you have about duplicate data and things like that. Those are things that don't make for a successful integration. So I think we've got a template that hopefully will be helpful for you.
Next question. If I want to integrate a new system into an out of sugar, how to add that system in the adapters?
Yep, that's what a adapter builder is for. So I didn't show that feature, but basically you can come into Sugar Integrate and you can there's a button on that adapter catalog screen in the top right corner. It says build a new adapter, and that's your starting point. So basically you're able to define what resources your custom application has, and you can map essentially sort of Sugar Integrate to those native API endpoints. So the long and short is adapter builders is meant for specifically that.
Speaking of, can we do telephony integrations also with Sugar Integrate, ones that have live interactions?
So there's, there's some SMS tools in the catalog. Twilio can be connected. I think Sugar Integrate, is more of that API or data integration tool. I think it could be part of like a telephony integration. I think just knowing that space, there's usually a very big user interface component to a telephony integration that Sugar Integrate doesn't necessarily touch on it. Sugar Integrates really for moving data between systems, and then that might surface in the UI, right? You move a lead into Sugar, and you'll see it in the UI. But if you really need custom user interface screens, and that's additional work, right? That's beyond what Integrate provides as part of its piece of the puzzle.
I see a lot of questions here. Probably should tackle this one and get it out of the way. A lot of people are asking about cost, pricing. Is it included in the subscription? Is it an additional? What's the pricing model? So can you guys speak to that?
I'll take that one, Matt.
Yep.
So to get the exact price, definitely contact your Sugar representative. But at a higher level, what the way we're pricing this is based on you're buying a license for the integration. So if you look at the adapters, we put them in different tiers because they're based on how we're going. Is it a simple integration? Is it a medium? Is it a large one? Like, are you connecting to like JD Edwards or SAP ERP? So they're broken out into different tiers, and each one of those will have a price associated with them, and you're paying for the actual connection. You're not paying for what you're doing with that integration. So as Matt mentioned, there's different build outs that you can use or different, if you look at procedures. And so I can have multiple procedures within that integration, and it's still going to be the same license price. If I have different integrations that I'm using, so in this case, I think I can look at I'm connecting to Slack, or I'm connecting to an ERP system. Those are going to have the pricing or the licensing that you're paying for. If you're connecting Sugar to Sugar, there is no charge for that. If you're building a new adapter, it's going to be at the lowest tier, so we're going to charge you at that lowest tier price. So again, contact your Sugar representative, and they'll be able to kind of walk you through that whole process.
All right, good to know. We still have a lot of other questions, but I figure that one's popping up a lot, so I want to make sure everybody got a chance to hear that one. Next question is, can we use this tool to integrate to non-sugar products, or does a sugar product have to be either the source or the destination adapter?
Do you want me to take that, Matt?
Yeah.
No. So we're not in the business to do integrations. As Matt mentioned earlier, if you look at what Sugar integrates for, it's truly focused on helping build out your customer experience platform. So we're saying right now that one of the ends of the integration has to be to a Sugar product. Long story short, one end to sugar, the other end to whatever you want it to be. That's what we're looking at now. Obviously, you can use this tool to do those type of integrations, but we want to kind of stay out of the business of doing all the integrations. And so you could probably work with one of our partners or do it on your own, but it won't be supported by sugar if it's not a sugar integration.
Next question: Does sugar integrate do sugar integrate to the token maintenance? In other words, will it know when to refresh the token, or do we need to code that? And they said, I'd like to authenticate once if that's possible.
Yeah, that's all kind of part of the adapter, right? That's one of the pieces that make the integrate platform simplifies for you, right? It kind of hides that complexity. So actually, when it comes to the sugar adapters, I should mention, we've engineered those things and reviewed those things from the ground up. So we know that, hey, the sugar cell, sugar serve, sugar enterprise, sugar professional adapters, we know those things inside and out because we built them. And so we know that those are kind of really high quality connections to sugar. And yeah, you shouldn't have to do any manual coding to figure out, well, my token expired, I need to call this API to refresh it and all that kind of stuff. That's part of the features that you get out of an adapter. So you're really just focused on your business logic and not kind of the details around token expiration and timeouts and stuff like that.
Could this do a multi-step process, such as look up a contact based on email address and then use the output from that, such as getting the contact ID in the next steps?
Absolutely. Yeah. The example, I didn't go through the example I had in super deep detail, but the process was retrieve records, define a query that was in one step that was used in a later step to retrieve records, which was used, and those record results were, fed into a later step to be iterated across it. So anyway, it definitely supports all that. And it can support, one thing I left out just because I didn't want to ramble on the demo for too long was, you can call other procedures from within a procedure. So I had, a couple different procedures that, created independently to support a couple different use cases. Well, you could connect them, right? You could have a procedure that, hey, gets that lead that hey, a new lead was created in Sugar, send a message to a Slack channel and publish that to SalesLoft and do this and do that, right? So being able to compose like a multi-step integration that touches multiple applications, that's exactly what this is for.
Could it generate a form that could take a CSV file as an input?
It can work with CSVs. It has features for working with CSVs. There's a files adapter that's specific, allows you to kind of surface a CSV as like a resource. It can also work with SFTP. So it can do all that. I think the piece about like having a web form, I think I want to understand that, but the point is, yeah, it can work with CSV files. It can integrate using just CSVs, so you can upload one manually, or it can go retrieve one from a location.
You said this was real time. Is this system somehow digesting webhooks, or is it simply polling more often? And what about systems that don't fire webhooks?
Yeah. I think you're onto something. No, the idea is that when we say if an underlying API doesn't support webhooks and doesn't have webhook functionality natively, what's part of the Sugar Integrate engine is a polling mechanism that'll go and poll the API and then generate webhooks directly from within Sugar Integrate. So that's the part that gets that's the feature that's added, right? So Sugar Integrate will generate the webhooks even if an underlying API doesn't have it. And the way that's typically done is, yeah, via polling, which I think you'd expect. Yeah.
This is kind of a cool question. I like it. Can you transform data as it passes through Integrate?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly that common resources. That's a transformation engine. I didn't. I might have glossed over it, but that's exactly what that is for. It'll transform the data. So you can do it in a common resource, or you could do it like in raw JavaScript in your in a procedure.
And we're coming up to the end of the webinar time, and I see we have a lot of questions left. So if we don't get to your question, again, don't worry. We have your email address, and we can certainly touch base with you offline. I want to ask a few more questions and then let you go for the rest of the day. So a few more questions. Does the data flow in both directions? For example, when you're sending information to the example you used in SalesLoft, sugar to SalesLoft, would it also flow SalesLoft to sugar?
Yeah, yeah. You could do it both ways. I could have done that in a single procedure, and the way I actually showed that, I created two different instances. So I had a procedure that flowed data one way, and then I created two different instances where the source and destination were switched. And then you could also within a procedure, in a single procedure, have create sort of that two-way sync process. So I guess it's very flexible. So there's a lot of ways you could come at that, but absolutely it can support sort of two-way sync, one-way sync patterns that you'd expect.
Is there or will there be training available?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some training actually already out on Sugar University. So you can go out there and see some stuff there. We're going to be planning some webinars. My team, includes sort of the developer advocacy function at Sugar. And so we're going to be putting together more webinars to get like really geeky on this stuff. For those developers out there that are interested in learning how to build on this. So we already have some stuff on Sugar U, and we're planning to do a lot more.
And last question is there a community where adapters can be shared?
Yeah, there's already an open source community right now, and so yeah, yeah, absolutely, there'll be a community, and we can, I think that's part of like rolling out better enablement around Sugar Integrate. We'll be sort of fostering a community, so for people to collaborate for sure.
Okay. We've got 1 minute left. Do you guys have any further statements or last thoughts to share with the group?
No, I think I've done too much talking. No, I think that was good. That was a great way to end too on the community. So I think everything's good. Definitely reach out to us. We'll try to get the rest of your answers that you had questions on. So we'll get those out as well.
Yeah. Well, the last thing I have is 1 week from now, same time, we have another webinar called Growth Through Service, Why CX is Essential Right Now. So we're going about the customer's experience and how technology can assist it. If you're interested, we watch for your email, or you can even go on sugarcrm.com. We have a registration there already up. Aside from that, thanks very much, guys. We appreciate it. Everyone look for the recording, probably 2 to 3 business days. And that's it for the day. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.